Oh. 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 Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Saishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Shri Sai Ram. Offering my humble pranams at Swami's lotus feet. I welcome one and all of you for yet another Satsangh of the Sai Govind series. And I'm very, very happy to introduce a batchmate of mine, a wonderful human being, Brother Bala Ramachandran, who, as all of you know, I mean, he is someone who doesn't need an introduction, but for the purpose of the norms of introduction, I have the honor of introducing him today. So Bala Ramachandran, for us, we remember him, or we continue with this wonderful song Antaranga Sai. And he has explained about this Antaranga Sai in innumerable satsangs. And when the name BRC, or as we call him, comes to my memory, it's always about his Antaranga Sai, and through that we get to see our Antaranga Sai. So BRC, let me take the, please pardon me for using the word BRC, but I would like to keep it personal, and that is how I know you, brother. And so he did his Bachelor of Commerce from 94 to 97 in Brindavan, and subsequently Masters in Financial Management at Puttaparthi campus between 97 and 99. And if I'm not mistaken, he's working in HDFC. And I will leave it to him to start this satsang, which has been going on ever since the start of COVID. But in the name of COVID, we have been given the blessings by Swami to hear wonderful people. And as the satsang name goes, the Sai Govind series of satsangs. Welcome, BRC. Over to you.
Sai Ram, brother, thank you so much. And please don't apologize for calling me BRC. In fact, it would have been very odd if you had referred to me by any other name. So that's why, that's how I've always been referred to by my brothers, and very happy to be referred to as BRC. Reminds me of the wonderful time that we spent together, physically under his loving care. We still are under his loving care, but physically, yes. Sai Ram. Sada Satswarupam Chidananda Kandam Jagat Sambhavasthana संहार हेतुम स्वभक्तेच्छया मानुषं दर्शयन्तम् नमामीश्वरम् सद्गुरुं साईनाथम्. Dear Swami, loving pranams at your lotus feet. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Sai Ram to all of you. Grateful to Bhagawan for the opportunity to be part of this satsang. It has been my experience and hence my conviction that each time Bhagawan gives me an opportunity to be part of any satsang, the objective is purely to refine me, to help me become purer, to help me understand him better, to draw me closer to him. Anything that you experience in terms of an enhanced sense of connect with Bhagawan, the joy that you experience, the love that you experience in the course of the satsang is purely between you and him. And I have absolutely no role to play. This has been my experience and conviction. So thus I'm very grateful to Bhagawan and everybody who has been instrumental in giving me this opportunity. I was actually thinking about the topic I should pick up because the most unnerving and interesting, I know that's paradoxical, but the most unnerving and interesting satsangs are those where they don't give you a topic. It is unnerving and interesting because when there's no topic, you are placed in front of a phenomena called Bhagawan, who can actually make the dumb an orator, but the orator also dumb. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum lankayati girim yatkripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam. I remember the first time I got an opportunity to speak in Bhagwan's physical presence was in Brindavan, and I started with this. And I realized, and I also shared on that occasion, that Mukham karoti vachalam, the one who is dumb, who cannot speak, can become eloquent by the grace of the Lord. But the one who's eloquent can also become dumb because there is so much to talk and there's so much which cannot be expressed in words. All the more so when you don't have a topic. So what do you talk about, Swami? At least when you're given a topic, you have an alibi. You can hide under the fact that, I'm dealing with a phenomena which is beyond words. Yatho vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. It's beyond the farthest grasp of words in the mind, but at least, you have an alibi. You can always say, hey, they gave me a topic, so Swami, I can't do much. I have to stick to the topic and whatnot. But here, you can't take that alibi. So it can get real troublesome. But thinking about it, praying, my mind went to a wonderful talk that Professor N. Kasturi had given to a group of overseas devotees. It must have been around birthday or Christmas time. It had a very unique topic. In that speech, which I think happened in the Satsangh hall in Prashanthi Nilayam, Professor Kasturi recollects one of Bhagwan's discourses where Bhagwan mercifully reveals the purpose of his incarnation. Now that's beautiful. And this is classified stuff coming out, okay, because it is, it's autobiographical in nature because it's Bhagawan talking about why I incarnate. So his mercy prompted him to do that, and Professor Kasturi captures it, and Professor Kasturi talks about it. And Bhagawan willing, I thought that we could center our satsang around that. My brother had the opportunity to speak in the previous satsang, is what I understand. And I'm sure he's already narrated an experience. I didn't want to go that way because then we risk the chance, because I didn't listen to that satsang. So there's every chance I may end up repeating the same thing again. So I thought, let's pick up a topic which is safely away. Let's talk about Bhagawan, speaking about why he incarnated. So I thought that would be a good place to start. Sada Satswarupam Chidananda Kandam Jagat Sambhavasthana Samhara Hetum. Brother Vivekanand and Pavan would have been upset with me because we used to use a different tune to sing it in front of Bhagawan. So to ensure I don't earn their ire, I will sing it in that tune again. Sada Satswarupam Chidananda Kandam Jagat Sambhavasthana Samhara Hetum. Swabhaktichaya Manusham Darshayantam Namamishwaram Sadgurum Sainatham Namamishwaram Sadgurum Sainatham. Sada Satswarupam Chidananda Kandam. That phenomena which is Sat, Chit, Ananda, and which is the very basis of creation, sustenance, and what we in English refer to as destruction, but is actually merger. That phenomenal reality of realities, prompted by the love for its own creation, takes on a human form, and that form is our Lord. It's a great sacrifice. Sri Aurobindo once remarked that when an avatar takes on a physical form, the experiences which the avatar goes through in the physical plane is no pretense, they are real. So if it is pain, the pain is real. When we disappoint him, the disappointment is real. When we do something which he's very proud of, the pride is very real. He is beyond all this, but he consciously takes upon himself, willingly takes upon himself, the not so pleasant ups and downs, peaks and troughs of the temporal plane, purely prompted by the love for his own creation. Bhagawan talks about a story. Emperor Akbar, a great man, in fact, he was somebody who propounded a new religion which was based on the unity of all faiths. But then he did not believe in incarnations. And he had an argument with his wise minister Birbal on whether an incarnation really makes sense or does not make sense. And his point was very simple. If the Lord has to rescue his children, has to do something for his children, why should he come all the way? The Lord is the King of Kings, the Emperor of Emperors. He's got many people who are at his command. He can just send them. So that was his theory. A few days later, the emperor, along with Birbal and the immediate family of the emperor, were on a boat ride, which was arranged by Birbal. So suddenly in between, what happened is, one of the emperor's sons, the prince, fell into the water. At the sight of this, Akbar plunges into the water in all his royal garb, picks out the child, and after he picks out the child, he realizes the child is no child but a doll, which was actually made in the son's liking by Birbal and thrown into the water. So it was all part of a scheme. And he came up. And then he says that, why did you do this? And Birbal says, Emperor, that's not the question to ask. The question is, why did you jump? There were so many of us around. There were the guards around, but why did you jump? Because he said, but that's my child. And he said, exactly. That's the way God feels. So when the children need help, the Lord has to come down himself, prompted by the love for his own creation. Prabhal prem ke pale padkar Prabhu ko niyam badalte dekha. Prompted by the love for his own creation, the Lord changes the rules. Many examples of that, Brother Vivekanand, Brother Pavan, and a lot of us here may have heard this. But one example I recollect is when the Institute Brass Band was formed. The famed Institute Brass Band. Normally in a brass band, what would you imagine as instruments? You would imagine that you would have the kettle drums, you would imagine that you've got the horn, you would imagine that you've got the trumpet, you would imagine that you would have the clarinet. You'd imagine you would have all this, but Bhagawan made an interesting addition to the Institute Brass Band. You know what he added? Bhagawan adds the Ganjira. Think about this. Now, where on earth do you have the Ganjira in a brass band? Imagine, decked in all those wonderful, shiny clothes of a band boy. There's a boy who's going around with a Ganjira. Why? Because that boy knew only to play a Ganjira. Prabal prem ke pale padkar Prabhu ko niyam badalte dekha. Prompted by the love for his own creation, the rules don't matter. The rules just don't matter at that point of time. What he decides are the rules. And what prompts the action is love. Maybe that's why Swami says, love is the basis. Love in words is truth. Love in understanding is peace. Swami talks about love being the basis of every single human value. I started by talking about Professor Kasturi. So let me share with you an interesting experience which will probably help us segue into what we have to, the topic which we're thinking of ruminating on today, the purpose of why Swami incarnated. Many years ago, I don't think the Sathya Sai Books and Publications Trust had been formed. It must have been around afternoon. So just picture this, my request is just travel with me. Let's travel together on this experience. Just picture this, because that's the beauty of Bhagawan's stories. It doesn't really matter whether you were there physically. Even now, if you have the eyes for it, you can still be next to him physically, experiencing everything that the devotees of those days experienced. That's the power of his story. So let's do that together, dear brothers and sisters. Let's find ourselves in the hot, burning sun of Prashanthi Nilayam. And where are we? We are somewhere opposite to the mandir. Remember, the cycle hall didn't exist in those days. So you had the Prashanthi Mandir, which was Prashanthi Nilayam. In those days, we call it the Prashanthi Mandir. Very few people realize that the cycle hall and the mandir are two separate structures. But a lot of us who've had the opportunity to see the old structure will. Opposite to the mandir, somewhere where you have the South Indian canteen for the Mahilas today, somewhere around there is where the scene takes place. There is a devotee who walks up to Professor Kasturi and asks him, "Sir, I want to know more about Baba. Do you have any books published on Baba?" Now remember, I just told you those were the days when the Sathya Sai Books and Publications Trust wasn't formed. There were no books on Swami. In fact, Satyam Shivam Sundaram was yet to come. So very apologetically, Professor Kasturi says, "Sorry sir, there are no books on Baba. There is a monthly publication called Sanatana Sarthi." Disappointed, the devotee walks away. And there is somebody a few hundred meters away watching this entire episode unfold with his hands perched on those curvy structures which is there on the first floor of the mandir like this. Somebody who's watching, and by now you've guessed who's watching. So it's Swami who's watching this. And then he says, "Hey Kasturi, come." So Kasturi says, "Summoned." So he calls up the winding stairs to the balcony, and the all-knowing Lord again asks him, "What happened? Tell me what happened. Pardon me if I here and there take a subway, take a sublane into the experience, because sometimes you just can't resist doing that." I remember in Sri Brindavan and Brother Vivekanand and Pavan were not quite possibly, they were 100% there when this happened, and they may recollect this because we were together sitting at his feet when this happened. Once Swami asked somebody, "Where do you come from?" And there are various ways in which you can answer it. There are normal ways, there are spiritual ways, there are multiple ways of doing this. One is to just give your name, just give your place. There are more, for the more enlightened ones amongst us, you can say, "Swami, I came from you," but you better mean it, otherwise you're in trouble. So, because there'll be questions, further interrogation, which comes from Swami. But see, normally what you'd expect to hear is, "Where do you come from?" You would say, "I come from so-and-so place, Swami." Or you would hear that person say, "Swami, I come from you, Swami." But in response to the question this time, the boy who was supposed to answer gave a third answer, which was a first time. He said, "Swami, you know." He didn't. He said, you know where I've come from. But the Lord always has the last laugh. And he said, yes, I know. But suppose you are sitting in your physics class and your physics teacher asks you a question. What is the second law of motion? Would you tell your teacher, you know? That's right, the teacher knows. But you're supposed to answer because I'm asking you. So, that's the Lord. So, Swami asks Professor Kasturi, what happened? And Professor Kasturi answers saying that, Swami, this person came and said he wants to know about Swami. Swami says, okay, what did you tell him? He said, Swami, I want, do you have books on Swami because I want to know more about Baba? So what did you tell him? I said, Swami, there are no books on Baba. There is only a monthly magazine called Sanatana Sarthi. Bhagawan looks at Professor Kasturi and tells him, Kasturi, you gave the wrong answer. And now Professor Kasturi is waiting, saying, okay, Swami, tell me what the correct answer should be. Now, don't lose me now, because, these are, the parting of the curtain. Once in a while when he chooses to do that, it's the parting of the curtain moment. So here's a parting of the moment coming our way. Let's not miss this. When he says, Kasturi gave the wrong answer. And then Swami says, Kasturi, you should have answered. You should have answered that this Baba cannot be understood through books. That this Baba cannot be understood through books. What a statement. In fact, I would say this is a sign of divine audacity, if I may use that term. And audacious. He's matter-of-factly saying, you cannot understand me through books. This Baba cannot be understood through books. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Beyond the farthest reach of the words and the mind. Now, when you're dealing with a Lord like that, the only way you have any chance of getting close to understanding some bit of him is when he, out of his mercy, tells you or reveals to you things about himself. And that's what Bhagawan does in that speech, basis which Kasturi sir gives the talk. Bhagawan talks about why the Sai incarnation. And with Bhagawan's grace, let's dwell on those points. Bhagawan is very specific. He says that whenever, and of course, an avatar comes, and of course, sometimes when you say avatar, again, I'm taking a quick aside, but I think it's relevant in this context. I'm just going with the flow in terms of what comes to the mind properly. I know there's a script to stick, and I'm conscious of time. I will not go beyond time. But the same time, whatever kept sprouted, I just feel like sharing. So once it was in Bhagawan's presence, somebody asked this question to Swami. Swami, who are you, Swami? Because, how do we describe you? How do we understand you? Who are you? Because, only you can help us understand. Who are you? You know what Swami does? Swami flips the question around and says, you tell me who I am. Now, this person who asked the question and had, by an act of God, literally and figuratively, in this case, become the person who had to give the answer. He had asked the question and now he has to give the answer. He was a poet, a very eloquent one. And so the moment Swami said, you tell me who I am, he broke into a flood of eloquence and said, Swami, you are Brahma, you are Vishnu, you are Shiva, you are all of this. And Swami is not very impressed with the answer. Swami says, no, wrong answer. Swami says, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva are my managers. I am the proprietor. So Swami's words. He says, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva are my managers. I am the proprietor. There is an interesting concept which the Vaishnava devotees in India who we refer to as Arvars, and it's a Tamil term called Arvar, and Aram in Tamil means depths, and Arvar is the one who plunges the depths of divinity to come up with precious pearls. they have a very interesting idea. They talk about a concept of a Adi Purusha, and Adi Purusha is the source of all avatars. Once when Bhagawan created a wonderful jewel of Mother Sita and says this is the Shikhamani or the Churamani which Mother Sita used to wear, and she showed it and passed it, showed around. Everybody was actually touching the Shikhamani and reverentially, touching it to the head. Bhagawan was observing this and he was amused by this, and he said, "Hey, don't touch that jewel, touch the hand from which it came." And then he said, "Avatars have come from this hand." It's the source of all avatars. We refer to Swami as an avatar for our convenience, but then, the source of all avatars. So when the source of all avatars decides to take on a bodily form and then come, it impacts thousands of things. Bhagavan says that the engine waits for multiple compartments to be attached before it moves. So, Bhagavan does one multiple things in one go. Great example of efficiency and effectiveness. We talk of agile working today, but that is what Bhagavan always was. Very, very agile with the way he works, does multiple things in one go. But Bhagavan says there are 6 foundational purposes why we care. So what's the first purpose? Of course, Bhagavan has said it in a sweet Telugu. For our convenience, I'll give you the English translation. The first purpose Bhagavan says is, when the Dharma of the particular age becomes weak, I incarnate and I correct it through what he refers to as Naya Marga. In Telugu, he says Naya Marga Mudo. Let's dwell on the first part. When the Dharma of the particular age has become weak. So each age, and by age, a more appropriate word would be eons, or what we refer to as yugas. As Krita or Sathya Yuga, you have your Kali Yuga, you have your, Krita, your Krita, Sathya Yuga, you've got Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. And each age has its Dharma. Of course, there's one Dharma which is uniform across ages, and that is Prema Dharma. And of course, if Bhagavan willing, possibly we'll spend a few minutes on that, because Bhagavan gave a very interesting answer once about that. But, otherwise there is a age-specific Dharma. And when that declines, then he takes on a form, he incarnates and he takes on a form that is specifically meant for that. Okay, now I can't resist this. I have to get into it. I said the Prema Dharma was an aside, but then I think I have to get into it because I think it suddenly makes sense while I speak. So, once Bhagavan gave a series of discourses on the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's about 35, 40 discourses, if I remember right, on the Bhagavad Gita. And everybody was immersed in this message of Bhagavad Gita given by the Gita Acharya himself, because it was the Lord who gave the Gita himself who was narrating. It was a special occasion. People were drenched in the message of Gita. One of the teachers working in Bhagavan's college, while ruminating on whatever he had heard over so many days, suddenly got, a doubt in his mind. And the doubt was very simple. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyam. Whenever dharma declines, O Arjuna, I am born. For what paritrana yasaduna vinashaya chatushkritam, etc., etc. But yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So his thought was, he said, see, Satya Yuga, a lot of things went wrong and he came in various forms. Treta Yuga, things went wrong, he came as Rama. Dwapara Yuga, he came as Krishna. Now each time he re-established Dharma and then something went wrong again. And the troubling doubt that came to his mind is, does this mean that the avatars failed? Because see, it's like, imagine you call in a plumber to fix something at home. And imagine you have to call him every month. Then you would say the plumber failed. Yeah, so, yada hidai dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Swami, you have to come so many times. So, what's wrong? Is it that the avatars failed? So that doubt was in his mind. And he came for that day's discourse. And in that day's discourse, Bhagavan suddenly says, he's got this uncanny ability to pick up things which are in your mind and shock you and surprise you. He can do it, but he will still surprise you by doing it again. One thing amazing about Swami is that, we have got very high standards for him. We know what he's capable of, but he still ends up amazing us. I don't know how he does that, but he does that consistently. So one more moment of amazement that day, what happens is that Sundari Swami says, many people think that avatars had to come multiple times, so avatars failed. And they couldn't resurrect Dharma. But then Swami says, when in the Gita, Krishna says, Dharma, yada yada hi dharmasya, what Dharma is Krishna referring to? He says that the Dharma he is referring to is nothing to do with the worldly dharmas or the body. The Dharma which he is referring to is Prema Dharma, the Dharma of love. And then he says, it was because in the Treta Yuga Rama came that you had a Tyagaraja, you had a Shabari, you had a Bhakta Ramadas, you had all those people. It was in Dwapara Yuga Krishna came that you had a Meera who came. You had a Chaitanya who came. And you had that entire band of those, those Bhakti cult devotees, your Tukaram, Namdev and Jnandev, and you talk about that entire group of people who took the world by storm, continue to take the world by storm, continue to inspire each one of us. They came. Each time the Lord came, all that it did is to strengthen the Prema Dharma. So the Lord never failed. Why is this related? Because Bhagawan says that when the Dharma of that particular age becomes weak, he comes and uses the most appropriate method. And the method which Bhagawan refers to, he says that when he came this time, he is using, and I will not use the word used because it is incorrect to speak about Bhagawan in past tense unless we are referring to the 5 foot 3 inch body, which we know, which we love. And sometimes we say, moving from the form to the formless. I think Bhagawan wanted us to forget our form, not his form. So how can you give up that form? How can you place something else in place of that form? Once you've seen that Lord, his beauty, can anything at all in the world actually be a substitute of it? Can anything be a proxy to it? It can't be. It is the Lord we have seen. Whether we have seen it through the physical eyes or no, but it is the Lord and Lord alone. It is that form, and Swami, there's nothing else that I want to see. So Swami says, I used Naya Marga. And what is Naya Marga? Professor Kasturi gives a beautiful explanation to Naya Marga. Naya Marga is actually, Swami refers to it as tact, very tactical. Swami does not tact. Swami uses the word knack. Swami uses the word knack. So very tactfully, Swami deals with us. And Professor Kasturi says, Rama came with the bow and arrow. He came with the Kodanda bow. Rama came with the bow and arrow. Krishna came with the mighty Sudarshana Chakra. Rama came with the bow and arrow. Krishna came with the mighty Sudarshana Chakra. And Swami came with a smile. That's what he came with. No bow and arrow, no Sudarshana Chakra, just that disarming smile. One of the songs the first ever song that I got to sing after I joined Bhagawan's institution, Shivratri 2000, if I remember right. There was a Malayalam song which I got the opportunity to sing this in Bhagawan's presence, and there's a very beautiful line there. I'll sing it in the original Malayalam and translate it for you. The line goes like this. Nityavashya sundaramam punjiriyal Nityavashya sundaramam punjiriyal Bhakta kodi manasathil iripavane Kaliyugathiloru priyadevan Kadanangal തീർക്കും സായി ദേവൻ സർവമതസാരങ്ങൾ അറിഞ്ഞവനേ സർവമതസാരങ്ങൾ അറിഞ്ഞവനേ സർവലോക ഹൃദയങ്ങൾ കൊതിപ്പവനേ കലിയുഗത്തിലൊരു പ്രിയദേവൻ കഥനങ്ങൾ തീർക്കും സായി ദേവൻ നിത്യവശ്യ സുന്ദരമാം പുഞ്ചിരിയാൻ നിത്യവശ്യ സുന്ദരമാം പുഞ്ചിരിയാൻ. that smile, and it's a half smile. It's that half budding smile, which is neither a full smile nor is it a frown. But it's not a serious look. It's like that early dawn where you can say the radiance coming, the sun is yet to rise, it is not risen, but you know it's coming. And that's the most beautiful part of that smile. Watch Swami's videos. You'll see that budding. You can't imitate it. It has to be only Swami. There's only Swami like Swami. So you have to see that half budding smile as it blossoms out of his beautiful face, which is so disarming. He smiled his way through. He smiles his way through. Nayamarkabuto. He takes the soft path. He said, I have to take the soft path. Because unlike the previous yugas, when the Dharma and Adharma were in two separate worlds, like the Sathya Yuga, the Devaloka, Asuraloka, were in two separate continents and two separate countries, like in case of the Treta Yuga. He says in the Kali Yuga, it's the same person. What do? You can't kill the person. So you'll have to cure. And to cure, he comes up with the most beautiful medicine. He comes with a beautiful smile. Nayamargamuto is what Swami says. In fact, Professor Kasturi says that Swami teaches pretty much like the Indian mothers. You know what the Indian mother would take is the child would stubbornly refuse to eat. And the mother would carry the child all around the grove, the house, and say, look at this tree and look at this crow. And say, how does the crow make noise? The mother says, ka, and the child says, ka, only to find the food going in. And that's what Bhagawan does. Smiling, laughing, playing, joking, rebuking. But each act was a teaching. Every single act was a teaching. In fact, Dr. Padmanabhan's daughter, Geetama, Dr. Padmanabhan would be very familiar. A lot of you possibly, Geetama has spoken in some of these satsangs also. So she may have narrated this, pardon me if it's a repeat, but this is worth hearing any number of times. She talks about a wonderful experience when Bhagawan was in their home. So it's, Bhagawan is like any other guest in their house. He's got a separate room. The kids were asked to keep silent so that they don't disturb Swami. So they are closeted in a room. They're locked up. Geetama and her brother Jagdish are locked up, and then they're playing. They're playing a board game, snake and ladder. Snakes and ladders. I'm not sure whether we have Gen Zs who are signed in. They may wonder what a snake and ladder is, because I'm not sure it's available in digital form. But do check out with the older folks in your home to figure out what a snake and ladder is. But it's a board game where you use a die and you move up. You catch a snake, you have to come down. You hit a block where you get a ladder, you move up, and you have to get to 100 as quick as possible before the others. So that's the long and short of it. But these kids are playing snakes and ladders, and they hear a knock on the door. They open the door and find Bhagawan standing there. And Bhagawan says, I'm very bored. Naturally, he would be. Imagine somebody who's got everything under his control. What would you be? Your life is going to be very boring, because you know everything, what's going to happen. So yeah, life was boring. He said, my life is boring. It's very boring. He said, what are you doing? We are playing. Can I play with you? But the children know Swami too well for that. They say, Swami, no. Why? Why can't I play with you? Because Swami, what will happen is whatever number you want on the dice will come. So you want 9 to come, it will come. 8 to come, it will come. You can't play with us. And imagine, Bhagavan makes a promise saying, no, I will not play like God. I will play like a human being. Okay, I promise. Allow me to play. So they say, okay, we'll give you a chance, and they play. So they play. The boy is somewhere in the 90s, Geetama is somewhere in the 70s, 80s, Bhagavan is languishing somewhere in 2 or 3, bitten by a 10 serpents, and he's somewhere in 2 or 3. He's losing and the case seems hopeless. But in the next 2 moves, Bhagavan goes straight from 2 to 100. Because he gets whatever number he wants before the other 2. And then Bhagavan doesn't stop at that. He looks at them and says, this is why I don't play with you, because you don't know how to play. See, I won again. But after all that, Bhagawan looks at them and says, Bangaru, did you notice that on this board there are snakes and ladders? You know, even life is like this. In life also, there will be snakes of disappointments and pains, and there will be ladders of pleasure or unexpected windfalls. You just have to remember one thing. Don't get very exalted and overjoyed if you happen to hit a ladder. Similarly, don't get over depressed if you get bitten by a snake. Learn to say, Swami, a snake or a ladder, it is your prasadam and I accept it. Whatever happens is for my own good. But sometimes we get confused. Swami, I just can't understand how this can be for my good. I got a fracture in my leg. So better, a different idea could be to say, okay, Swami, I don't understand that it's good or bad. Because then I'll start trying to understand how it's good and I'll never understand. Because his calculation of good is very different. And he picks up something which is, good for the entire cosmos, not just for the person. So that's a very different wisdom which we will not be able to fathom. A safer strategy will be to say, Swami, it's your prasadam. And you get prasadam from a temple, you don't reject it, right? Whether you like it or not, you're supposed to accept it. Swami, it is your prasadam and I'll accept it. Snake or ladder. And Bhagavan says, Bangaru, if you pick it up that way, if you learn that, then you will have lasting peace and ananda in your life. Just look at this. Through a game of snake and ladder, Bhagavan talks about the highest philosophy of life, Naya Marga Muto. Through every act, through every dance, through every song, through every joke, through every rebuke, Bhagavan teaches us what he has to teach. And that is point number one. We can actually go on. By the way, I feel that if you pick up one of this, you can do a full satsang. Actually speaking. You pick up any one of this, you can go on for not one satsang, but you can go for days together. Not because you have to be an eloquent speaker, but it's because he is vast. He is infinite. There are so many dimensions to him. There are so many dimensions to him. And each time you think you have got it. Yeah, now, thank you, brother. He's saying now that you have said it, let's do it. Of course, if that's what he wills, definitely. There are so many dimensions which you can keep exploring time and time again. And it's very layered, depending on what you need at that particular point in time. He reveals a meaning which you need. In fact, Bhagavan has given all of us a promise, which I think we must know if we don't already know, because it's important that we hold him responsible for it. We can't let him go that easily. Bhagavan says, in fact, has promised that he will give us, each one of us, a Bhagavad Gita which is custom made for us. A Bhagavad Gita which is custom made for us, which gives us what we need at that point in time. It is just in time learning in the flow of life, if I may use that term. What you need at that particular point in time. This is what the Lord has promised. Let's not miss this opportunity. He's talking and let's just listen. Let's just tune in, listen to the Lord within. And yes, he is prompting in so many different ways. In fact, talking about Nayamargamato, let me add one more point. Experience from Swami's childhood. In Bhagwan's school, the school where he studied. So this must have been in Uravakonda, I guess. But I think before that, Swami also studied in Bukapatnam. So I don't know, one of these schools. So I think it must have been Uravakonda in all possibility. The system was very simple. The teacher would ask the question. If the student does not answer, then the student gets slapped. Remember, we are talking about those days when the philosophy of education was you spare the rod, you spoil the child. I mean, they did it because they thought that was the best way. The intent was great. Okay. Today, of course, you can be sued for doing this, but those days it was all allowed. So the child would get slapped. And who would slap the child? The child who got the answer right got the privilege to slap the child. So suppose somebody gets a question and the child gets it right. Now I have the privilege of slapping the next child who gets the answer wrong. Bhagawan always got the privilege of slapping other people. because he answered the questions correctly. I still remember once in Trey Brindavan and again Brother Pavan, and I'm feeling very good that both of them are here, because it's like going back to Trey Brindavan and sitting with Swami. They may remember this. Once we pestered Swami saying, Swami, childhood stories, and finally he said, no. And he said, Cheep tuna putu and all. Then one day on his own he started off. So that's how it works. He will say, I will not, and then he'll do it on his own. So, in that narration, Bhagawan said, I was a very good student. And then Swami is saying in my notebook, on the first page, the teacher used to write very. And I was thinking, only very? And Swami says, next page, very. Next page, V-E-R-Y, very. Next page, very, 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 very. And on the last page of that 100-page book, there would be a word which says good. Swami says, because I was not just good, I was very, 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 very good as a student. In fact, when Swami wrote about himself in a poem, Bhagawan says, Dodu Balarandu Kudi Vidi Badulalo Telugu Chaduvu Konta Nirche Padi Vayasulo Angla Bhasha Nirvanarige Nanata Pulo Tanayanna Prapulo. It's Bhagawan's own words. He says, Dodu Balarandu Kudi Vidi Badulalo Telugu Chaduvu Konta Nirche Padi Vayasulo. His playmates, when in the 10th year, they would just be grappling with Telugu, which is the mother tongue. What was Swami doing? Angla Bhasha Nirvanarige. To learn English, Angla Bhasha. Angla Bhasha Nirvanarige Nanata Pulo Tanayanna Prapulo. He went along with his brother Shesham Raju to learn English because he was the next grade. He was way beyond. He was Ivy League. So Bhagawan was a great student, so Bhagawan would get invariably the opportunity to execute the punishment. But you know what would happen? When he was asked to slap his classmate, Bhagawan just couldn't do it. Bhagawan would do it like, in Kasturi sir's words, Bhagawan would do it like turmeric is applied to the face. When you apply turmeric to somebody's face, how you do it gently, Bhagawan would do that. And the teacher would say, you're not doing facial, okay? You're supposed to do a slap, give a slap. And then he says, you don't know, I will show you. And Bhagawan used to get slapped. But Bhagawan did slap because that was not the way of the Sai avatar. Naya Margamuto. Take the soft approach, the non-invasive approach, the silent approach. The transformation is so slow, dear brothers and sisters, that many a time you would not even know that he made a difference. You wouldn't actually be able to put your finger and that Swami made a difference to me. And he would have made significant differences in our lives. And think about it. Maybe if you think about it, if we are lucky, we will identify what difference he's made to me, but we will not, more often than not, because he does it silently. Neuroscience says that any habit which is built, which is transformative in nature, is very subtle. Because you try big changes, it doesn't work, because the brain doesn't want to rewire itself, because it's an expensive process. So it happens very gradually. It is a gradual transformation process done very silently. And because of that, what happens? He transforms us, he makes an entire difference to us, but we don't even know. And possibly we don't even give him credit. But the beautiful point, dear brothers and sisters, is this: he doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. He's looking for no praise, because like the Lord says, from top to toe in many discourses, you've heard him say, from head to toe, there is no swartham swaprayojanam. Swami's own words. No selfishness, self-interest. If I sponsor a candy for a person, I'll make sure I take a selfie along with it and tell 10 people about it and put it on social media and tag 20 people who have a great following. Bhagawan transforms lives and will not even care to tell you he did this. Why? Because it is the love of the most selfless kind. Love without duty is divine. When you don't love because it is your duty to love, it's the mother's duty to love the child, and hence the mother loves. But that's why the Lord says that the real relationship is the Guru and Shishya, because the Guru has no expectation in return, not even that you will take care. The Lord loves just because it's nature. Forget nature. I think that is He. Like the sun is about light, brightness and shining. Like the fire is about heat and light. The Lord is love. And there's nothing that you need to give in compensation. There's nothing that he expects. Absolutely selfless. Naya Margamuto, silently, softly. Somebody said, in fact, Bhagawan once said, I have no secretaries because I have no secrets. See, there's a mandir secretary. Swami never had a secretary. Even now, there's a mandir secretary, but Bhagawan never had a personal secretary. And that's actually right. If you study complete law and secretarial practices, the word secretary came from the word. Is the person supposed to keep secrets? I have no secrets and hence I don't have a secretary. But now, in the presence of all of us, Bhagawan here, I know Bhagawan is that unseen 22nd member who's logged on to this call, and I am audaciously challenging Bhagawan and saying, Swami, you have a secret, I'm going to call it out today. And Bhagawan's biggest secret is how much he loves us. That is one thing which he'll never reveal. Closely held secret. He'll keep it close to his heart. We'll never be able to fathom how much he loves us. And it expresses itself in so many different ways, in ways which are sometimes painful to us, disappointing to us, which cause us to take his photo and possibly fling it outside the house, but he will never give up doing what he believes is good for us. And it doesn't matter whether we stop praying to him, whether we discard him, whether we criticize him, whatever we do to him, he will not give up on doing not what he believes, what he knows is good for us. Naya Margamuto. I warned you, we can do an entire satsang on this. We are at 6 o'clock. But yes, I'll endeavor to cover the other 5 points too. This is not on my script, but a few things which is reminded. So just have to, share. Okay, let's move on to the second point. Bhagavan says the second purpose. In fact, you must listen to the original Telugu. Swami ends with the word Korapu. Brother Pavan is better at it's his mother tongue. So Brother Pavan, excuse me if I'm getting the Telugu wrong. But Korapu is for this, for this purpose. So there's a lot of series of Korapus which come in the discourse. So the second reason Bhagavan says is to remove the pollution of the heart, which causes factions. And how does Swami do that? Through the balm of love. To remove the pollution of the heart which causes faction through the balm of love. So many things you can narrate, but I will narrate one of them. It is an amazing experience and was narrated by the person who narrated this after Bhagavan gave up his physical form. In fact, he narrated this in one of the sessions in the institute, speaking to the boys. Needless to say, it was a hair-raising experience, and you will realize why that is when I share what I share now. It was in the year 1967. There were a group of 27 youth, well-meaning youth, who had genuine love for the nation, for India, and they wanted to cure India of all its ills. And they wanted to carry out projects which would help them accomplish their mission. And one of the projects identified was to annihilate, was to kill those whom they believed who were pseudo-godmen and saints and sannyasis. They identified 27 people, sadhus, sons, people who are known as avatars, and said that each one of us will pick up one and we're going to kill them. So there was this youth who later on became an old man and narrated the story as an experience. On his chit, he was lucky, but because on his chit, the name which he got was Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. So he comes already practicing. Naya Margamuto, remember, Swami smiles at him and calls him for an interview. And Swami is chatting away to glory with him, with lots of other people. After some time, Swami calls him individually, one-on-one. It's as though Swami is offering him opportunities. Come on, you came for this. Go for it. But he's still planning because they fixed a date. In fact, the date fixed was 18th of August, 1967. They had fixed a date saying this is the day when this will happen. 18th of August 1967, Bhagawan decides to sleep in those days outside the mandir, decides to sleep in the sands, so Bhagawan's cot, Bhagawan sleeping on it. And Bhagawan gives this youth a position right next to him, saying, you sleep right next to me. And there are people all around in the mandir. It is night, and in fact, they fixed a time. The time was 10:30 p.m. 10:30 p.m. was the designated time. So everything was decided. Okay. So I don't know who checks for a good muhurta for these kind of things, but he had done that. Now, he had, a mouth organ, but which was not really a mouth organ. You press a button, a knife comes out. So that was the weapon. In those days, you didn't have all this checking and all that in Prashanthi Nilayam in those days. So he could easily walk in. So what happens is, it was about 10 o'clock, and the clock in Prashanthi, ting, ting, it strikes, and then Swami wakes up. Swami gets up, and this person is not able to sleep. So Bhagawan gets up suddenly, he also gets up. And then Swami checks and says, what is the time? Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Looks at him and says, it's not yet time. So he's saying it's not yet time, half an hour to go. So he's not, naturally he's not told Swami any of this. Half an hour passes by. Swami wakes him up. Swami says, it's time. And he says, where's your mouth organ? Pick it up. Swami presses the button. The knife comes out. Swami holds the mouth organ, the knife now, to his chest, and Swami says, come on, kill me. This is what you've come to do, right? Come on. Come on. Now the youth starts shivering. He doesn't know what to do. Suddenly now all that planning and all that preparation has gone for a toss. Can't do anything. And in the confusion, what happens is, the knife slips from his hand, falls on his own toe, and it starts bleeding. And Bhagawan says, your toe is bleeding. Immediately tears a piece of cloth from his dhoti, and then lovingly Bhagawan bandages the wound. And then the rest, they say, is not history, but his story. The youth got transformed naturally because he came and spoke to the boys many years later after Mahasamadhi, when he came and spoke to the boys and narrated his entire experience. And you know what happened? The 26 others, remember there were 27, the 26 others were all arrested by the police, caught in the act, and they were all sentenced to death. This was the only person who escaped. To remove the pollution of the heart which causes factions and hatred, how? Through the balm of love. And that is Swami. For us, Swami says, that is my second purpose. The third purpose, Bhagavan says, is to protect the good and the helpless. To protect the good and the helpless, and Bhagavan gives himself a beautiful name there. To protect the good and the helpless, who is Achyuta. Achyuta. What is Achyuta? Achyuta means the one who is undiminishing, who never diminishes. The one who is unchanging. And the one who incarnates. All these three meanings. So he's actually unchanging, he's actually undiminishing, but then, appears in a diminished form, but it's actually not diminished. Takes on so that we may be able to see him, so that we may be able to touch him, so that we may be able to move around with him. Otherwise, we would just be awestruck with Bhagavan. We will not be able to love him. Swami says that the Lord comes down and incarnates so that you can speak to him, you can play with him, you can love him, be loved by him, and feel a sense of kinship with him. That's why Bhagavan says an avatar is like an aeroplane. Comes down, you get into it, he goes up, he takes you along with him to the higher states. So that is the avatar. And Bhagavan says the avatar is like the drill master, not like any other teacher. Why like the drill master? Because the other teachers would only say, but the drill master, Swami says, will actually show you. In fact, they'll demonstrate. And Bhagavan says, I'm like that. My life is my message. I demonstrate everything. So that is Bhagavan. So Achyuta, the one who incarnated for what? To protect the good and the helpless. And then he adds Partiyandu, the undiminished, changeless Lord incarnated in Parti. He specifically calls out Parti here. Partiyandu Vasudevakya Shauri Shri Hari. This is how Bhagavan refers to himself in this. Remember, it's coming directly from the Lord. So these can't be taken lightly. It's the Lord talking about himself. When we remember this, you must remember, see, when you listen to Swami's discourse, it's important to remember who is talking. It's the Lord. It's the Lord of Lords who is talking. So he says, I incarnate in Parthi as Achyuta to protect the good and the helpless. In that speech, Professor Kasturi narrates a riveting experience of a girl student, not a Sai devotee, okay, with an inverted commas, not a Sai devotee, in the sense doesn't know Swami. This is in San Diego and was living in the International House, which is attached to the San Diego University. Now, this girl is suffering from arthritis. It's 10 p.m. at night and she's, this terrible pain and she is not able to move. And then she starts screaming, saying, "Is there no one to help me? Is there no one to help me? Is there no one to help me?" And it's a single room and then the next room people are sleeping. You don't even know who your neighbor is, from which country the person is, because there are students from different countries. You don't know whether the person understands the language in which you're crying out. And this girl cries out helplessly, "Is there nobody to help me? Is there nobody to help me? Is there nobody to help me?" When you don't have anyone, this is the one. This is the one, and that one appears. Suddenly Bhagawan appears before her. In the girl's description, a strange-looking man wearing an orange-colored robe with an afro hairstyle appeared stood in front of me. And what's the first thing that he said? He didn't say, "Wife here when I'm here." What do you think he would have said? He did not say, "Wife here when I'm here." Do you think he would have said, "I'm Sai Baba"? No, he did not say that. You know what he said? Did he ask, "What do you want? How can I help you?" No, he didn't say that. You know what he asked? You know what he said? He said, "Why are you screaming? Why are you screaming?" Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, the Lord listens to everything. The Lord can hear everything. He listens to even the footfall of an ant. The sound of the ant walking. Even now, dear brothers and sisters, we think Swami is not there physically. We think we need mediums and modes and agents and whatnot to connect with him. No. Just because Bhagawan, you can't listen to Bhagawan replying, does that mean he doesn't listen? Sarvatat panipadam, sarvatokshi shiromugam, sarvatat shruti manloke, tat sarvam avritya tishtati. My hands and feet are everywhere. My face is everywhere. My ears are everywhere. I surround everything. Dig Ambara, as Shiva is referred to. He is the canopy of the entire cosmos. It is Bhagavan's own words. Shvetashvatara Upanishad, but we've heard Bhagavan say this so many times. Sarvatat padipadam, sarvatokshi shiromugam. Has some mention in Bhagavad Gita too. And so Bhagavan is saying, "Why are you screaming? I'm next to you. So why are you screaming? I'm here." It's just that you're telling something to Bhagavan and Bhagavan is not responding. In Parthi, when we got up and wanted to say things to him, did he not say, "Wait, wait"? Did he not say, "Kucho, kucho, sit down, sit down"? Maybe it's the same thing. Why do we have to assume that just because the Lord is not speaking, He is not listening to us? Because listening and responding are two separate processes. The Lord listens to everything. He listens to even the footfall of an ant. And that day He did listen to an ant in San Diego who cried out. And He said, "Why are you screaming?" Didn't wait for the answer. Created Vibhuti, applied Vibhuti, and walked away. And how did we come to know? Because next day, this girl goes to the warden of the hostel, Mural Angels, who's a Sai devotee, and says, "A guy came into my room wearing a saffron colored robe, afro hairstyle. I had pain. He applied some white colored powder. I was cured." And the Mural Angels picks up a photo and says, "Is this person?" She says, "Yes." When was that? That was Swami. The usual suspect for her. Yeah. So there are no list of suspects. There's only one suspect. Just pick that up and say, "This person, right? Yeah, I knew." You can always be up to such things. One more experience. Again, Gita Ma narrated this. Very beautiful. Once when Bhagawan gave her an interview, Swami gave her 6 Vibhuti packets. And after creating Vibhuti, he said, he just gave it to her and didn't say eat it. Because normally Swami would tell her eat it. That time Swami didn't. So the assumption she made, but didn't give any specific instructions. So Swami creates Vibhuti in the interview room, very lovingly, with his own hands packs the Vibhuti, 6 packets, gives it to her, doesn't ask her to eat it. Her husband had not accompanied her on the trip to Prashanthi Nilayam that time, and thus she assumed that this was meant for her husband. So she said, "How loving of Swami. So let me save this in my bag." And she saves it in her handbag. And of course, she goes home. She excitedly says, "Swami so lovingly has sent you vibhuti. Let me now fetch it for you." Opens the bag, does not find the vibhuti packets, empties the handbag like a lot of ladies would have done. Empties the entire handbag to see where it is, but then finds the entire world in it, but not the 6 packets of vibhuti. And this goes on. She's wondering what happened. Then they forget about it. Sometime later, her husband and her, they go for a concert. And during the recess, during the interval, she wants to use the restroom. Geeta Mohanram goes to the restroom, and there she finds, a lady, cleaning. A Spanish lady, if I remember right, cleaning. Okay, she's a janitor. So, for some reason that day, Mrs. Geeta Mohanram had decided to go decked in a sari, traditional Indian wear. So the moment the Spanish lady looks at Geeta Mohanram, she looks at her with wide eyes and asks her, "You India?" So her English is not great, as you would have already made out, but the point is conveyed. "You India?" She says, "Yeah." That's not very difficult to guess because she's wearing a sari. So, "You India?" She says, "Yes." But the next question is interesting. She says, She says, "You India?" She says, "Yes." Next question, she says, "Booty, booty, booty." So he says, "Hello, wait. You India? Okay. But what is booty?" "Booty, booty, booty." And after some bit of thinking and the generous use of her imagination, Geeta Mohan figures out that this lady is possibly asking for vibhuti. So she says, "Wait." And she happened to have a handbag. She puts that hand in again and she says, "Maybe Swami ki vibhuti for it." Lo and behold, those 6 packets which disappeared have reappeared. Now she knows who these packets are meant for. So she picks up the packet and then she gives it. And she's so thankful, and this lady is crying. And then Geeta Mohanram asks her, "You know Baba?" She says, "No, I don't know who Baba is." Then he said, "Why did you ask me for booty?" So he says, "No, my daughter is terminally ill. I have been praying to the Lord, to Jesus, and I've been praying fervently. The doctors have given up on her, but one day, again, the same suspect." I think he's got a standard operating procedure sometimes with these things. The same suspect, orange robe, afro hair, appears in the dream this time and tells this Spanish lady, and she has no idea who this person is, says that, "Hey, an Indian woman will come to you, ask her for vibhuti, give it to your daughter will be okay." And from that day, she has been on the search for this Indian lady, but she forgot vibhuti. All that she captured is booty, and that's why booty she went. And next time she went to Prashanthi Nilayam, Swami speak to Geeta Mohanram. He looks at her smiling knowingly. He said, "Bidda, that child, she's fine now. She's completely cured." Look at this, dear brothers and sisters. Swami says, to protect the good and the helpless, I, Achyuta, incarnated in Parthi. I am Vasudeva, I am Shauri, I am Srihari. What do you have to worry when there's a Lord like this with you? What do we ever have to worry when there's a Lord like with you, always guiding us? Like in Swami's own words, whether you're in a village, whether you're in the city, whether you're in the sky, whether you are on earth, wherever you are, whether you are in the forest, wherever you are, for those who have none, Sai is the refuge. And that Swami is the refuge, and that is what he talks about here. Now, listening to all this, you may say, when I say you may say, I don't mean you may say. I'm saying my own monkey mind. I'm referring to me. So my own monkey mind is thinking, no. All these stories, no, Swami was physically there. Okay, so now it's different. So if you get that doubt in your mind, then we must talk about one more experience then. And Bhagawan, my father has had the opportunity to do seva. Prashanthi many times he gets mandir duty, and he's generally in the lines. He goes from the state of Kerala. So he was narrating, he was sharing his experience. He was once just when duty was about to begin, the day before, he got conjunctivitis and serious infection. So the point is, if you get conjunctivitis, then you have to kind of wait till it's okay, because you can't kind of spread it, and that means you lose 1 day of seva. Okay, what I admire in him is he's done this for more than 2.5, 3 decades, but then he doesn't want to. He's very greedy about that 1 day. I mean, I think it's okay to be greedy when it comes to Swami. So you don't want to miss that 1 day of seva. So he's praying to Swami. And what he does is there's a medicine that he's carrying with him, which it's an Indian medicine called Eyetone, Eyetone, Eyetone. So he uses Eyetone drops. And next day he's there. He goes and sees a doctor in the general hospital and says that, it looks okay, but I think you better come to the hospital. Okay, so she sees him in the mandir, you better come to the hospital. But the problem is, if you go to the hospital, the timing of the visit would be such that you would lose 1 session of seva, so he doesn't want to go. So he bunks and decides to stay on. But he just uses his idol. Seems to be getting better, but he wants to be sure. One day he is doing seva, standing somewhere towards, what we refer to as a VIP gate, that small gate near that Kashi through which students enter, that small gate, which is near that, so the East Prashanthi side, that small gate which is there, you know what I'm talking about, the one next to the post box and all that. So he's standing somewhere there. So there is, amongst the group of devotees who are, who are walking out after darshan, so it's after bhajan, you have darshan of Swami's Sannidhi, and then people are walking out. One gentleman, approximately 5 foot something tall, because my father is 6 feet, so he had to literally look down upon him, and the man was looking up to him. Okay, that's how he remembers the height. Just looks up at him and says, "Sai Ram, Eyetone, good option," and walks away. I mean, how do you know I'm using Eyetone? And the person is, at least he's not seen that person afterwards. 5 foot 3 inches man looking up to you, Eyetone, good option, too much of a coincidence. Coincidence is a miracle where God chooses to be anonymous, but I think he was a bit too loud here to be anonymous. I think he gave it away. But yes. And it was okay. Irrespective of what time, irrespective of whether he is there physically, not there physically, anybody is helpless. Parti Andu, Achyuta is there. For those who are helpless, the Lord is there to help. And Swami is very interesting. Even when I think about this episode, I think Eyetone, Eyetone, good for the eye. I, the English I, tone. You tone down the eye, that is also great. Okay. So I think that's also a great idea. Tone down the eye so that the bigger eye reveals itself. So that is Swami. That is Swami again. You can keep talking about it. I'm reminded of a beautiful line from, amongst the many lovely bhajans that we have, one bhajan which always reminds me of this aspect of Swami, the Achyuta who is there for the helpless. You may have heard this bhajan. Bhagawan, Bhagawan, Patita Pavan Ram, Daya Karo, Daya Karo, Daya Karo, Bhagavan, He Patita Pavan Ram. I'll tell you one of my favorite lines here, because it's a beautiful imagery in that line. Dina Dayalo, Parama Kripalo, Dina Dayalo, Parama Kripalo. Dina Dayalo, Parama Kripalo. When you call out to him, "Hey Dina Dayalo, hey Parama Kripalo, oh Swami, I need help," and then the Lord comes. You know how? Just visualize this. It's an imagery. The Lord, seated on a white horse, in that flowing orange robe, that beautiful hair which the wind loves to touch and play around with, holding a sword in his hand. And when you sing, Raksha Karo Bhagawan, just imagine when you sing that, Swami twirls around the sword majestically. Raksha Karo Bhagavan. It's a childish imagery, but a beautiful one. There's one line in a bhajan. No, you have one line in a bhajan like this. The entire bhajan gets kind of, really, really, really enhanced. It powers the entire bhajan. You look forward to that line, and that powers the entire bhajan. One word, one line in a bhajan is actually enough. So that's that aspect, which comes out here. The Swami who was Achyuta. The next one, Bhagawan says, the next purpose is to reveal the original inner meaning of the scriptures, which has been corrupted by commentators. Bhagavan says over a period of time, all the bhashyas which are written, the commentation which have got over a period of time, the truest sense has been lost. And the original essence of it has been lost. And Bhagavan says that I have come to correct it. Now, Professor Kasturi thinks it's worthwhile and important to mention that while a lot of the other things, points which Swami mentions, are kind of similar to other incarnations of the Lord, coming, protecting people who are helpless, etc., etc. But this is unique. There's one more point which is unique. But there's out of the 6 points, there are 2 which are unique. And one of them is definitely this. He says it's to correct the misinterpretation of the scriptures. So I'll quickly talk about 2 things. 6:30, right? 6:30 is when we are supposed to finish, right?
Not really.
Okay. If you're sure.
It's when he decides. So you go
okay.
with the flow.
Okay, I'll go with the flow. I got a bit overboard with a couple of points. There were at least 4 or 5 experiences which I didn't plan to narrate, which I ended up narrating. But anyway, so I guess that's how the script is written today. Okay. I remember once somebody, while speaking in Bhagwan's presence, said, Bhagawan speaks only Vedanta. Bhagawan speaks only Vedanta. And without batting an eyelid, Swami turned around and said, no, whatever Bhagawan speaks is Vedanta. Think about this. It's not that Bhagawan speaks only Vedanta. What Swami tells you is Vedanta. What Bhagawan tells you is Vedanta. There are so many things which I can narrate, but I'm going to hold myself back here. Just talk about one thing. There's this devotee who is who had the opportunity to serve as the state president, moved very closely with Swami for a long time. Swami used to invite him to speak very often. And Brother Pawan, Vivekanand, all of them have heard speeches by him in Sri Brindavan when we sat together. Of course, since I don't have his permission, I'm not naming him, but then I'll still narrate. It's wonderful to narrate the experience. So what happened is Bhagawan asks him to speak, and I think this happened in Kodaikanal, if I remember right. Now, he speaks about a particular episode from the life of Krishna, and the episode he chooses is where Putana, the diviness, is sent to kill baby Krishna. So as Putana comes, Vyasa describes, and the gentleman quotes in the speech, saying that the Lord had his eyes, was lying in the cradle. Just imagine, picture this, okay? So beautiful, dark-hued baby, cute baby, okay, in the cradle, and then is actually innocently sleeping, innocently with an inverted commas, sleeping and with his eyes closed. And the speaker who spoke in Bhagavan's presence says that actually what happened is the Lord was thinking. He was thinking because Bhagavan has narrated this. Putana in her previous birth was actually the daughter of King Mahabali, Bali Chakravarti. So when the Lord came as Vamana, and she saw the beautiful boy form of the Lord, she felt that maternal sense of affection and said, I want to have a child like him. But a few minutes later, when she did not understand his act of grace, and when Lord Mahabali was sent to what they refer to as the Patala, the netherworld, she felt so angry with this person, says, I want to kill him. So she had a maternal affection and also, the urge to kill him, both of them. So the speaker said that the Lord was thinking, how do I give her, how do I, give her moksha? I'll have to employ a method which satisfies her maternal feeling. At the same time, she also wanted to kill me. I have to finish her off that way. So I'll have to kill her. So he was contemplating a method which is appropriate. So when this was narrated, Bhagawan said, stop. Bhagawan said, how do you know this is what the Lord was thinking? So he said, Swami, Vyasa has written this. Now the next question was even more difficult. He says, how does Vyasa know? How does Vyasa know? He's talking about Veda Vyasa. So Swami is asking, how does Vyasa know? Did he go and see? Exact words. Swami is saying, did he go and see? He says, Swami, what do I know, Swami? Vyasa has written. And then Swami says, I did not close my eyes for that reason. Notice Swami said, I. Swami said, I did not close my eyes for that reason. And then Swami says, the reason why I closed my eyes is this. If I just open my eye, the very sight, my very looking at her will burn all her karma. Then what is there to annihilate her for? But the script, the avatar is different. I just have to look at her and everything will go away. Darshanam papanashanam sparshanam karma vimochanam sambhashanam sankatanashanam sambhashanam sankatanashanam. The Lord just has to look and it's burned into ashes, then what excuse would I have to annihilate her? So there have been misinterpretations in the scriptures, and Swami says, I have come to set all of that straight. We are down to the last two. The second last one, Bhagavan says, the fifth purpose is to save the earth from the burden she is suffering from on account of wicked people. Now, Swami says, to save the earth from the burden she is suffering from on account of wicked people. But at this point, you're saying, Swami, but wait. You said Nayamargamuto in the first one. You said, I'm not going to annihilate people because good and bad is the same person, Dharma, Dharma, the same person. Now, how will you do this? How are you going to manage to do that? How will you do that? Now, this sounds contradictory. This sounds tricky. Swami says, you think it's tricky? I still have a trick up my sleeve. So what's the trick up my sleeve? So Swami did not clarify, but Professor Kasturi has got an interesting interpretation. He says that Bhagawan reduces the burden of the world. Bhagawan reduces the burden that the cosmos is carrying. You know how? He says by cutting us to size. By cutting us to size. In fact, there's a beautiful chapter in the Loving God called The Chiseled Child. Even if you do not read the entire book, Loving God, I would recommend you read the entire book, Loving God. But even if you don't, do not miss two chapters in the book. One is a chapter called The Chiseled Child. And second is a chapter in Loving God called Loving God. There's a chapter called Loving God and Loving God. But Chiseled Child, Professor Kasturi talks about all the chiseling that he went through. Very painful, extremely painful, extremely painful. Do you know that Professor Kasturi, the editor of Sanatana Sarathi, when the first ever All India Conference of Sri Sathya Sai organization happened in Chennai, in Abbotsbury in Chennai, the Abbotsbury Hall in Chennai, he was not allowed to enter inside because he was in cold storage. And by the mercy of a Sevadal who took personal risk, was allowed to sit outside a grilled shutter and listen to Swami's discourse. And imagine, he's supposed to report for Sanatana Sarathi. He is not allowed inside the hall. And Professor Kasturi says, but when the Lord delivered his message of love that day, the iron grills were not constraining. So beautiful. But yes, he says cut. He cuts us to size in many ways. Swami says put aparti is put apart I. Put apart I. The I tone, which we spoke about some time before, and he employs customized methods for doing it based on where we are in our stage of life, but then he does it. And when he does it, we experience it as prasadam. And say, okay, Swami, this is your prasadam, and I take it. and you allow him to do the work. So that is how it happens. Of course, here that it can be very embarrassing to get into specific experiences, so I will not dwell into experiences as far as this particular point is concerned. And this brings me to the last point. The last one is a very cryptic point. The last one, Bhagawan says, the sixth major reason is, the purpose of the incarnation is to fulfill the promise granted during the Treta Yuga as Rama. Very cryptic. One of the purposes is to fulfill the promise given during Treta Yuga in the Rama avatar. So what promise is that? There are many, but and some of them Swami has spoken about openly. There's a boon given to Jambavan, etc. So at some point of time, you happen to read Ramkatha Raswahini or Swami's discourse, you'll find this very interesting. So there are cases like that. There are stories like that which we know of, but here Swami is very cryptic. Because see, remember, he's not talking about a personal experience or a group of people here. He's talking about all of us. So he says, to fulfill the promise given during Rama Avatar, what promise, Swami, are you talking about here? So they push Swami, saying, Swami, please tell us what this promise is. Swami said, no, that's okay. I'll do it. No, why do you want to know? No, Swami, please. And after a lot of pestering and praying and crying, one day, Swami, in a private circle, revealed the, essence of this cryptic message. He decrypted the entire thing for us. So this is what it is. Okay? So hold your breath. And if you're not sitting down, you need to sit down to listen to this. So he says that in the Rama Avatar, what happened is the war was fought. There were the Vanaras on Rama's side, the Rakshasas, the demons on the other side, and we know the story. Ravana got vanquished, the army Ravana got annihilated, most of his family got annihilated, a lot of the demons who were part of the army got annihilated, some of them were left behind. And they approached the Lord and said, Lord, it was not our fault. We had to fight for our king. We know what is Dharma, what is Adharma, but the point is, do we have a choice? Now, the Vanaras got an opportunity to serve you, but we didn't. Please give us that opportunity. And Swami says, okay, I'll give you the opportunity, but like in Prashanthi Nilayam, we would say, wait. I'll give it to you at the right time. Because I know, he's a master of timing. He knows, like it's Swami Brahmananda, one of the direct disciples of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, would say, the mother hen knows when to hatch the egg. The chicken need not make a big fuss out of it, okay? You are a chicken, you just keep quiet. The mother hen knows when to hatch. So we just have to keep our duty and keep praying, okay? It becomes we complicate things for ourselves when we set timelines and say, Swami, I want my moksha by 31st of December 2023. We complicate things unnecessarily. Swami is a master of seasoning and he knows when to do this. So what happens is that Swami says, wait. So Swami narrates the story and then they're all looking, saying, okay, so he says, okay, I'll tell you. That opportunity, that promise given to all those demons has now been fulfilled in this avatar. And everybody is looking at themselves. Swami says, yeah, correct. You too. You too. Okay. So we should have just kept quiet. When he said, let it be cryptic, no, we should have just allowed him to do that. No? But then, okay, he said, okay, you asked for it. So here I give it to you. Yeah, you're right. But then the point is, does it matter? It doesn't matter. So once I remember there was this big argument. Swami set up an argument saying, who are better devotees? The boys or the girls? So there were arguments. Boys, girls, argument on either side. And you have great people arguing. Huh? You have somebody like Professor Anil Kumar on this side and Dr. Jema on the other side, and it's a formidable force on both sides. And what is Swami doing? Swami is sitting in the middle, and he's the anchor. He's supposed to be the anchor, and anchor is supposed to be neutral. But what Swami is doing is supplying points to both sides. And if somebody seems very silent, kind of prompting them and then having fun. So this is happening. Finally, Swami gives the verdict. Okay, by the way, it's an aside, but I can't resist mentioning this. One of the arguments which was spelt out is saying that Swami, an entire Mahabharata war happened because of a lady, Draupadi, laughed at Duryodhana. But till then, it was all fun and laughter. You know what happened at that time? Swami turned around and Swami's eyes were red. And Swami said, hey, Moor Musko, Duna Poto. He said, shut up, buffalo. And then he said, she's a princess. Do you think she's so cheap? Do you think she's so bad mannered? And then he said, she did not laugh. Now, this is what the Lord is talking about this. Huh? She did not laugh. It's a attending maid behind who laughed, but Duryodhana mistook. But look at this, no? It's been so many years after Treta Yuga, but you touch the devotee, the Lord can't tolerate. The devotee of the Lord is the most dangerous weapon in the world. You touch the Lord, you abuse him, you talk anything about him, no problem. You touch his devotee, you are done. The devotee of the Lord is the most dangerous weapon in the world. So all this happened in this. But finally, Swami gives a verdict saying, girls are better than boys. So naturally, girls are cheering and everybody's happy. And then the boys turn around and say, Swami, it's okay. It's okay. No problem. Because it is only the patient who gets the company of the doctor. So that's fine. We are bad. That's why you're with us. So that's okay. If we have to be sick and you, the doctor of doctors, has to be there with us, the one who removes the Bhavaroga has to be there with us, and we have to be in ICU 24/7, you attending to us, you don't have a choice. It's not that we are bound to you, you are bound to us, you are stuck basically, Swami, with us. You keep coming and going. In fact, it looks like avatars are passing clouds and we remain the way we are. So Swami, you are eternally stuck with me. You are my eternal companion. That's okay, Swami. So sometimes it's not too bad an idea. It doesn't mean that we don't follow what he says. But the point is, if that is what brought us here, we don't have to, I think, grieve, because at the end of the day, we have had a great outcome. We are in the Lord's presence. We are in the Lord's care. We are under the shadow of His feet. Even now, as we speak these words, the Lord is with us. We are with the Lord. We are in the Lord. The Lord is in us. These words, everything that I've said, I offer at Bhagawan's lotus feet. My apologies for having extended the session by 10 minutes. It's 6:40 Indian Standard Time. My apologies for any inconvenience caused. But even that, I offer at Swami's lotus feet, and hopefully I'll learn my lesson and stick to the clock the next time. Sairam.
Sairam, I'm going to get your classmates to speak. All I have to say is Swami is definitely watching, because there was a question from someone asking if you could go how you connect line by line to a bhajan. And as he typed it, you started talking about it on that bhajan at that time. So absolutely,
so beautiful.
I can't think of how the thought comes and the answer is there. I'm going to let Pavan speak and let it be 94-97 batch here on the screen. But all I can tell you, brother, we've got a couple more of weeks where we would like you back. I hope we can have one full session on the bhava aspect of bhajan singing, because that's something that is needed. As there's always these complications of singing bhajans that move your heart if you touch a note, but then you forget about the bhava that has to be there to touch the note. It's a process. And can I request you, if you could sing Antaranga Sai, and then Pavan will come on screen and...
Sure. Sign up. Brother Pavan, you want this with the alap or without the alap?
Brother, with alap. Many people would have not heard the alap of yours.
Okay, brother. Right, sir. Shanta Brahmamaya Varupa Yugavatara Paramadayana Dina Jana Karuna Sai Jana Karuna Sai Antaranga Sai Anarthanath Sai Antaranga Sai Anarthanath Sai Deenabandhu Sai Karuna Sindhu Sai Deenabandhu Sai Karuna Sindhu Sai Antaranga Sai Anarthanath Sai Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti Prema Rupa Sai Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti Prema Rupa Sai Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai Antaranga Sai Anarthanath Sai Deenabandhu Sai Karuna Sindhu Sai Rama Krishna Shiva Shakti Prema Rupa Sai Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai Yugavatar Baba Shri Sathya Sai Antaranga Sai Anarth Sai
Sairam all. I think today's session has elevated us to the connectivity to Swami in both Bhava as well as, I should say, many of us say, Swami, we love you, we love you. But how many of us know about Swami fully, right? So if you ask who is your best friend, they will say, yeah, my best friend name is this. My best friend's favorite color is this. My best friend's favorite food is this. Favorite holiday spot is this. You will note down 10 to 15 points of your best persons, right, in your life. It can be your friend, it can be your mom, your dad, your daughter, whoever it is. But if everybody of us, we say that we love you, Swami, but if one question is asked, suppose any new person, okay, why do you love Swami? And what do you know about Swami? The person who has asked, to Professor Kasturi ji, how do I know more about Swami? Is nothing but to go through what Swami had spoken. And I think the way today BRC brother has given us the 6 points, first time I'm ever hearing, like, oh, is it? Oh, is it? Oh, is it? So that means we hardly know anything about Swami, and we always say that we love you, Swami, and Swami is protected, Swami is giving me, Swami is helping me, Swami is guiding me. But how much we have known about Swami in a physical way, how much we have learned Swami, understood in Swami in scriptures, or whatever the basic things. I feel that we fail our duty if we have not gone one step ahead to read and to understand, to note down what is the importance and why is it Swami has come down as avatar, and what is he trying to what he has done through his works and his missions. I think this is an eye opener to me, at least. We should make every effort to to, read, whatever is there now, at least available in scriptures, I mean, scriptures meaning not the old scriptures, but at least on Swami's literatures, try to pick up something. Loving God is a beautiful, example of what Brother BRC has got. And Satyam Shivam Sundaram, and I'm not sure, how many people have completely read, Loving God and Satyam Shivam Sundaram, all parts, and understood, the gist of what Swami's, life is all about, what Swami has done and everything. In that way, I feel that, the only one thing, it's an eye opener that we need to understand what BRC brother has brought out today beautifully, and the kind of experiences what BRC brother has mixed it up with the pointers what Swami has come. It is really thinking that yes, we should be able to comprehend in a bigger picture. Swami is beyond time, space, and physical form, which he has explained through the experiences. Uh, and I would know that there are lots of his own personal experiences today. He has not bought in. He has got only the Swami's literatures and those things. I think we should have one more follow-up session of how and when way he has come to Swami's fold. I know their family are from very very old devotees, at least 40 decades kind of experiences he has right from his grandfather. That's what we heard from him in the hostel days. And coming to our interactions in hostel with BRC brother, is an ideal student. Not even a single day he has not got up at 4:45 or 4:30 and be the first person in Supravatam in dining hall in Brindavan campus. Let it be, in any day, he was the first person to be there. Hats off to you, brother. And I was just telling him that the Supravatam song which he had sung or he has recorded is being still played in the hostel even today in Vrindavan hostel as a recorded version, so that boys can sing along. So it's an honor to us that we belong to brother BRC's batch. It's a very very honor to be part of your batch, brother. And very few people, in the noted Sai community, they associate. For example, people say I'm from Ravi Kumar sir's batch, singer Ravi Kumar sir's batch. In that way, we all feel proud that we are part of BRC's batch, is what I can say very proudly. I'm sure the same feeling Vivek also will be able to, share his words. Sai Ram, thank you.
And I have the same feeling too. I will also be very proud that I'm part of Brother Pawan's and Brother Yoganan's batch. Absolutely.
I will say this journey with Brother BRC started on the 19th of January 2021 when I messaged him requesting him to be part of the Satsangh. So as Brother BRC had summed up today, there is a time and space for everything. So back then he had explained on his inability to join because his daughter was doing her 10th standard. Plus, he was in Chennai attending to Sundaram Bhajans too. So the timing, everything was an issue. But then, it's very beautiful. I'm sharing this more as a personal experience. We have Professor Sundaresan who keeps sending us thought for the day and a couple of Swami and different things. And the last couple of days, I just glanced through and I did not read it in full. And I was feeling guilty. I said, Swami, 94 to 97, we were there. Studies were secondary. Anything else was secondary. You were primary. And today I'm just scrolling through for the sake of saying it's like a tick mark. I have seen it. Good old Brindavan days, and then the sense of guilt too. And it is nice when when said that BRC is speaking. I said, wow, okay. And then here I'm connecting with Pawan too after a few months, quite a few months. So the talking about Brindavan days, and then Swami brings about this Brindavan days in a format. There could be guilt. I'm also reminded of what our Professor Ruchir Desai once said. The distance between you and Swami is the distance that you think that he is further away from you. The further away that you think that he is to you, he is further away. The moment you start thinking about him, then the distance reduces and it is just the distance between you and the heart. So, and that is what Brother BRC has summed up, time and space. And when Swami says, wait, 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 there is a reason for the wait, and there is an answer to anything and everything for everybody at different time and different space. This family, I mean, Pavan, you did not hear Brother VRC's younger brother talk recently. This is a family of wonderful storytellers. And if you go back and listen to what he had said, he started off with a beautiful Malayalam song and made it into a full story. The full 1.5 hours was a garland intertwined in that beautiful Malayalam song sung by one of the fellow devotees in Kerala. So this wonderful storytellers, I have to apologize to all that, you know, my introduction has been very informal, but this is a wonderful storytelling family that I think it would have been better warranted that I came prepared to introduce this wonderful person. And as you rightly put it, Pavan, I think in 94 is when Swami actually introduced the number of seats in the BCom and the BSc. Probably to include us also to be part of the journey, to be part of this wonderful set of brothers that we have been, that we call proudly as BVN 97 today.
Sairam, so all I would like to say before Vivek says anything, brother BRC, you're kind of stuck now with Sai Govind, so
Happy to be.
do keep at least 2 weeks. So I think
Sure, brother.
of course I'm not going to impose on the days. It's something that's going to go as a journey. The idea is to record all these and then try and reflect not just with the YouTube video and forget about it, but then try to pick those gems from each one of it and pass it on to those who have not had the bliss of being there in that. You know, of course, Swami can still come back and give them the same experience that you have got without even having been a student. But that this is, I would say, sharing of the ambrosia that you have had to experience firsthand. And that also gives us the conviction to stay connected and keep that distance short, you know, by just being connected. So, brother, one session on bhajans, definite request, where I hope you can speak on just the aspect of how you would, you know, everyone has a bhav to emote on a lyric. Apart from the composer, we have heard a lot of composers speak of their connect, but then there's always that reflection that happens, which is an inner connectivity. It's just very personal when you sing. I hope we can have one session on that. And I think whatever you did, I think we only did justice of the first point. After that, all the others were like, you know, when you watch a movie where you want to fast forward, and then movie is over, I know what's the plot. Let's not do that. Let's go back and touch on point number 2 to 6 a bit more in detail, because I still can't understand how Swami beautifully connects, because we have had a speaker who spoke upon why Swami is Bhagawan, why Swami is Avatar. So all this is happening in the last 2 months, and then it's just getting refined to make it simpler for us to connect. So I should also place on record Brother Pavan, who is instrumental in getting the alumni active in Singapore and these sessions, and that's definitely an inspiration for us to do this series. Brother Pavan, hope to see you. I'll better get your number so that you're on the list.
Sure.
So, Sairam, so we'll finish with Samasta Lokas. Thank you. I think we know the speaker for next week, but then this is how Swami works. The speaker for this week pulled out. He's from Chennai, and we have got another Chennai speaker speaking this week. So I have no idea who the speaker is. Let me just surrender and say, I don't know who the speaker is. He will decide, and you will get to know the moment I get to get a confirmation. So that's better Sharanagati than saying that we know who the speaker is. Sairam, let's finish off with Samasta Lokas. Thank you, brother PRC. Sairam. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शांति शांति शांति। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। Sairam, everyone, stay safe.
Sairam.
Sunday, same time. Looking forward
Sairam.
to seeing you all.
Sairam, Brother Venkatesh. Sairam.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
yeah.
Sairam,
Sairam,
Sairam.
Sairam.